Chapter 11. Never been better. You f'kin' runt. Logan snarled at the helpless Shane as Logan's strong arm was locked around Shane's neck, locking his head in place. Nobody escaped Logan's headlock. His tattooed arm was nearly bigger than Shane's whole head. Logan's biceps smothered the poor man's neck, and Shane struggled to free himself with words. All Wolven knew of the pecking order. Alphas, betas, omegas. This no longer mattered as much since Darkbloods blended with human society, debunking the concept completely. Still, Shane was considered the beta runt, bullied every chance Logan managed to get. Truth be told, Shane had smarts. His intelligence was often flawed like every other human and Darkblood to walk the earth blessed with ignorance and cursed with common sense. As smart as Shane was, it was amazing how he got Zamson and Logan into sticky situations that pointed them down death lane. Perhaps his intelligence shines in knowing which jobs his friends could take on the side when they were not racing the streets and collecting cash or, when they are testing their luck, pink slips. Zamson never lost Pandemona and he'd be damned if he did. Zamson lingered on the balcony, analyzing his smartphone. The numbers displaying on his bank app were more important than his two homeboys going at it behind him. It was more than 6 figures. Noctavion paid them more than well. He once graced his eyes on such numbers before, blessing his and Logan's account, which paid the bills and the services of women. If not for Shane catching hell from Logan, it was safe to say that Logan would have ordered a couple of she-wolves for a nightcap by now. Warm bodies after Triumph were as good as whiskey, weed, good music, and a great time. Is this even necessary? Shane managed to speak a bit loud. Logan tightened his lockdown on him, but he made sure Shane suffered just a tad bit that the squeeze of his headlock made a brute point. Look on the bright side, both of you are not only still breathing, but you're paid. Paid. Zamson mildly chuckled. Like money would keep the berserker at bay though. Even as a human, Logan retained his famous wrath. It was almost as if he was in his werewolf state already. Luckily he wasn't. FCK the money, you scrawny motherfka. Do you know what we had to deal with? We were sent after some sleeping blood BTCH. And what's worse? Some secret FCK organization called Paladins involved. The FCK's a paladin? Shane asked as he yelped. Logan growled. Act like you don't know. I honestly have no idea what you're barking about. Logan's brow furrowed. Thought-provoked until diminished by a spark of mild rage. Well, whoever the flying FCK they are. I killed a few. And who the damn knows what they're f'ing capable of. Zamson almost lost his neck. Well, his neck's intact. Shane tried to smile. The grin came off weak. Win-win. Logan tightened his grip even more. The pressure unlike Shane had ever experienced. Shane gagged in his plea. Any more squeezing and Logan could pop Shane's head like a stiff zit. Yeah. Laugh it up, Smiley. Next time some leech in a suit offers you a job, take it your damn self. That's the problem. Shane kept slapping Logan's bicep, a tap-out technique. It didn't work. I'm just one wolf. I'll literally die out there if I tried. If I didn't think the two of you could do it. Shouldn't have thought at all. Logan interrupted. Your thought process gets you into shit. If it eases things, the client wouldn't have considered you two if not for reputation. Shane made one more attempt. Logan's headlock felt like he was collared like a bee, while enduring a long term in a dungeon. This is what happens when you have street cred as big as your DCKS. And just like that, Logan's wrath was done. His lock on Shane's neck died as a slow smirk cut between Logan's lips. Yeah, mine's pretty big. I'm one of the fastest there is. I understand Noctavion in that aspect, but it changes nothing. Zamson closed the app on his phone and strolled back inside. Logan left the now freed Shane to recover and reflect on his dangerous shenanigans. The mission. The vault. Paladin control. Levels way above our heads and yet we couldn't say no when faced with those odds. I know. Real grimy. But Shane was under oath. Either he fulfills its contract or be cursed, or worse. Zamson shook his head. I don't blame him. Logan nodded. Not that he appreciated Shane's event with a vampire crime lord. It was more along the lines of Shane having no choice but to accept the contract, recruit Logan and Zamson and spare his life. Noctavion was ruthless, making the Ambrogio cast too dangerous to oppose. And Zamson to ponder Noctavion's goal. What concerns me is what would the hand of Ambrogio want with a primal aside from petty politics? Confusion and shock gradually became Shane's face. A primal. Logan was coming to thoughts about Paladin until Zamson's words reeled him in. A f'ing what? This Paladin organization Noctavion showed me. A private organization specializing in people like us. They were transporting the ancient in that vault. There hasn't been a primal for years beyond years and they found one. But for what? If this organization is that covert, that hush-hush to even our kind aside from the humans, that means Noctavion's into some shit. But Logan dismissed the subject from surfacing. He was glad that it was over and done with. Not to say that he did not enjoy releasing the beast on a few victims prior. That was actually the highlight of his night then. The SHT isn't worth knowing now. It's Noctavion's problem now. Best we put it behind us. Out of sight. Out of mind. He leaned against Pandemona. Zamson's car was so dormant and normal-looking that its actual fiery state when roaring down the road seemed non-existent. Shane's right, as much as that rubs my balls wrong. We got paid. That's all that matters. But it mattered. It mattered in more ways than one. It mattered because Zamson was bitten by one. He encountered death by that bite alone, only to be resurrected through fire. Logan didn't surface the issue to Shane because Shane didn't need to know just yet. He left that up to Zamson to reveal once Zamson figured out what became of himself. He recalled the sting of death, followed by the plunge into darkness. There was no bright light, no flicker at the end of the tunnel,
no pearly gates,
no fluffy clouds occupied by winged creatures playing harps, just darkness and fire, and rage. Everything. Zamson memorized it all. He recognized the flames that became his fur. He recalled the sight of Naia in the rain. He testified to his own urge to slaughter her, the incredible surge of power pumping his every vein and muscle, kicking his burning soul into an overdrive that if one called it going berserk would indeed be an understatement. Then he realized his desires delved deeper into the passionate pits of primitive lust, that raw wild sensation to destroy Naia from the inside. His will to kill mutated into the need to breed, to take her, to stuff her insides with brute dominance. The touch of her sleek flesh was smooth as the finest silken threads of the land, the taste of her lips beyond that of the sweetest nectars, a voice that can send angels to sleep. It was as if she was here at this moment, begging him to cede her, and it alarmed him. He snapped out of it real fast. Not fast enough for Shane. Or Logan. Yo. Logan studied Zamson. Zamson's brief pause bothered him. It was evident that he zoned out, lost in another realm of thinking as Zamson's body was absent and the mind was elsewhere. You good? Zamson wasn't good. Not by a long shot. He quietly shook his head, looking to relieve Logan and Shane's look, which didn't work at all. Shane exchanged concerned looks with Logan. Zamson continued his delusion, fooling himself more than anyone else in the room. Even though Logan saw his best friend die, only to rise again. Never been better, he said, leaving soon after. And quite suddenly at that. Left in silence and confusion, Shane and Logan watched as Zamson took his leave. Right after that, Logan slowly, hauntingly, turned his gaze on Shane. He wasn't done putting Shane in that infamous brotherly headlock. Nobody was going to hear him scream. Chapter 12. Second Contact. Stars lit the moonlit sky like shimmering jewels decorating the night's darkness. It was a pretty night, indeed. An excellent night to unwind, to unravel the mind's stress beneath the therapeutic cover of nightfall accompanied by a full moon. Zamson abandoned Shane and Logan's quarrels and found sanctuary in his backyard, where the thick forest lay in wait miles beyond his not-so-freshly cut lawn. In another week or two, unless it rained, the grass was going to be a problem. Zamson kept pushing his homeowner duties aside for car engines and prize money. Being an outrunner was his passion, which became a career as street racing paid the bills. He saved enough over the years of being one of the fastest outrunners of Twilight City to last him a lifetime. A perfect life for a man, a werewolf, who had nothing else to distract him. Not even women. That was soon to change. He took off his shoes and nuzzled his bare feet in the grass, toes freely wiggling in bliss. His lungs took in the calm night air, releasing a long drawn-out sigh. If he were in his wolven form, he'd howl at the moon. Wolven didn't require a full moon to shift. But like all wolven aware of their roots, Zamson did make time to pay homage to the moonbearer, goddess of the moon, mother of all wolven. The moon graced the sky as a mother would her children, sheltering her pack with soft songs easing the hearts of the sons and daughters that called to her white gold light. Zamson closed his eyes. His ears perked. A harmony of howls sung from places near and far. Some feral, others like him, wolven and wolves remembering the bearer of the night's tranquil glow. It calmed him. Welcomed him in his silence. Nothing else mattered. Not the races, the money, the fast life, not even Noctavion. Except the returning sting rising upon his neck. Zamson's eyes shot open. A winged silhouette flapped across the moon. Zamson wasted no time rushing for the dark shape that seemed to be landing more than it was flying. The closer his keen eyes absorbed the creature, he realized that it was a woman, a Batwoman, and she was naked, thick, and weak as if hit in the wings or tired from miles in flight. Whatever it was, Zamson followed. Fast. Beastly fast. His body became a burst of moondust for but a deadly second. Now he was insanely fast as he tore through the forest in his black wolven form, storming the woods like a ferocious savage out for blood. The burning sensation on his neck rose by the mile, driving him and his fur to burst into flaming madness. Then it was gone. The pain vanished from his neck, but the burning wolfman remained. The naked Batwoman fell into the forest, snapping branches like toothpicks. Zamson slided to a gruff halt. He snorted black smoke and growled like an inhuman furnace. His flaming ears pricked and licked the air. Embers flaked off the tips of his ears. Nostrils picked up her scent as she hit the ground hard. He found her soon enough, nestled in her little dirt crater. Her red dreadlocks hit her face as they slithered until limp. Zamson glared his deadliest wolven scowl yet, the vampirial primal that bit him on that rainy night. Naia! Here! How and why lurked Zamson's mind, but he couldn't allow his thoughts to linger as Naia could stir again at any moment. Then came the rain, like before. Next came a song, exactly like before. But it was different. The tune, the melody, it carried a calming ballad, the likes of lullabies. A one-chorus choir with a flow of honey, slow, relieving, disarming, paralyzing. Zamson couldn't move. His flaming fur diminished to a tamed blaze. It was enough for Naia to snake her hair around his limbs. She rose from the earth and embraced the wolven, whose flames did not burn her. Singing. Her spell song had once again collared Zamson like a servant destined to be hers to command. She looked him straight in his burning eyes. Hot coals brimming with fire and untapped passion. But was that passion? Or some sort of blazing fury? She found out real quick the second she gagged for air. Zamson had her by the throat, squeezing her neck, shutting her up. The light in Naia's eyes seemed to fade. They glimmered instead. She took him by the arm, locking her fingers around his brute strength, which claw choked her out. Brave was the other hand to touch his canine face, cradling his jaw. He could snatch her hand clean off the bone with one bite. A burst of moondust left him human. Zamson and Naia's eyes rested on another, not unblinking but slowed. Perhaps it was her lips that gave away her intention, not quite smiling or pleading for release. Yet, the sensual effect in her eyes was hot and suggestive instead of the familiar glare of death. Her now damp dreadlocks that wrapped around Zamson pulled him in, killing the space and what tension dominated between them. Her hands claimed his soaked muscular form, and their lips joined as raindrops continued to fall. Ecstasy became them. It was as if an infinity of hands touched her wet, nude flesh all over. When she closed her eyes, she felt he had many hands and mouths, which touched her everywhere. With a wolf-like sharpness, Zamson's teeth sank into her fleshiest parts. She sang a whole new tune now, a song of whimpers and lustful grunts. Naked in the grass, he crawled upon Naia and laid his full length over her. Naia enjoyed his weight, relished being pounded beneath the brutal force of his body. She wished for them to be together forever this way. Melded flesh locked in perpetual mating from tongue-lashing mouths to toe-curling feet. Unending waves of bliss rolling through her body. She squirmed, ground her hips into him and yelped. Zamson hit the spot. Naia's claws left red lines on his back, marking the muscles that rumpled and folded there. She claimed his A, squeezing his firm rear to maximize his grind, until she came undone in a convulsing frenzy, flooding his fleshy piston with her warm release. Then she bit him. Chapter 13 Dark Lover. The pain of 1,000 needles claimed Zamson's neck. A familiar pain triggered his rage. He groaned. Hard. That rage gripped and slammed into Naia's center. Her hips rolled into his pelvic fury, her cries muffled beneath the flow of his blood plunging down her throat. She needed this. Memories flashed between lust-hungry minds. Memories of pride, pain, joy, dominance, power flooded their busy skulls. Naia focused on making sense of him, ignoring his life as a street racing sensation to find what she demanded of him most. Memories of fire and wrath came to her. The vision, a roaring inferno beating her like a drum. And within that booming inferno stood a beast far worse than man, a beast whose eyes burned hotter than 1,000,000 suns, howling beneath a red moon. The howl was beyond that of wolves. It set Naia off as another wave of pleasure caused her to release his neck and shriek sheer bliss. In fact, she released him too. Naia's arms fell to the grass. Her legs loosened but stayed rested around him. Zamson still plowed her into a hot mess. Her bloody mouth slack-jawed and grinning in the dirtiest of ways. This was what she was looking for. Zamson's blood restored her. The bane hollow, that cursed poison, was no more. That wasn't all she desired. She was receiving it by the seconds. Zamson ravaged her, caught in a trance, enslaved to the rapture of carnal lust until those mental chains snapped and his body quaked as he came the hardest he ever had. The rain stopped. Naia purred. She praised him, loved him, thanked him. Her hands came to stroke his face. Zamson was slowly coming to. He focused on her gorgeous face. Oh, how her eyes were two pools of shimmering gold. They really shined with glee when he snatched her by the throat, choking her again. The pleasure never escaped her face. Harder. Zamson blinked as if caught off guard. He was more than caught if he realized what took place. His DCK was caught between the chaos of her shapely thighs. She reached for his wrists, squeezing, encouraging. Those legs of hers returned to locking him back down in case he escaped. Lo and behold, he did not. If you let go, I'll kill you. You won't. Zamson dared to challenge her. You killed me once. And I'll do it again. But you won't. Naia grinned from ear to ear. Who did he think he was, calling her bluff? Playing with her after their first encounter was a battle of blood and natural hatred. She purred from the thought. Perhaps I changed my mind. Fire came and went in his eyes like a pulse. Perhaps you know I'll win this time. I admire your confidence, but I will not allow my death to come by your hands. Your purpose is of another design. Purpose? The FCK are you talking about? Her grin showed a bit of sparkling white and a hint of red. I see the dark lover knows not what he is. This excites me. Zamson moved his hips. Naia's thighs protested against him. This lockdown of hers rivaled that of gold-digging women trapping men into paying child support by preventing them from achieving the pull-out method. Unfortunately, Zamson wasn't thinking about that all when he was deep in the clutches of her vampiric love canal. The damage was already done anyway. Naia didn't seem to be the type. He freed her neck and sat upon his knees. The way his chest rose and fell caught Naia's eyes, enamored with the whole show. Her legs had also, surprisingly, loosened again to rest. Her red dreadlocks made up for the shackles. Like snakes, they made sure to keep some type of wrap around Zamson. They stroked and slithered around them both. The fact that they were but naked in a now wet forest didn't seem to be an issue either. Zamson's brow furrowed. It was time to seek answers. What kind of vampirial are you? Naia purred. Nice to know that our true name survives this era. She reached for his abs, tracing the six-pack until the shape of his pelvic area really caught her attention and her roaming finger. When you look upon me. She reached between them. Her finger moved from their sex to her belly, then between her breast. What do you see? Zamson was brutally honest. Trouble and a good FCK. Naia lightly thinned her eyes. Amusing. She secretly found his response familiar. You see what you wish. I know what I desire. You as my protector as we annihilate our enemies. Preferably the Kushnik Noctavion Vladimus. Zamson lifted his nose at her. His expression was far from arrogant but a little intrigued. And concerning. Noctavion Vladimus holds the city by its balls. He thinks for a moment. Naia called him something he had heard before. But from where? The mother Safanger like you, but you claim him as something else. He is of a dangerous caste that has no objections with the butchering of our kind. Naia continued to caress him, telling her tale as her touch became familiar with his tight, wet skin that shined in the flickering moonlight. Long ago they had no true shape, she continued, mindlessly feasting on us just as we do yours and all who live and bleed. Noctavion is from that time. He has lived many lives and plans to live more by consuming my blood for ascension. A Kushnik, a vampiric killer of vampirials. That would draw the hairs upon anyone's back that was vampirial these days. Believable for Noctavion to be the apex threat of them all. Made sense for Naia to feel threatened by him. Was she threatened? Zamson could not tell. She appeared heavily sedated from his hard flesh still burrowed inside of her. She surely did trust him. Quickly at that. You will help me kill him, she softly demanded. Not a hint of plea to slip from her tongue. His death will be our salvation. Her head tilted. I still a gold sparkle. He must be destroyed. And what then is there for you once he's out of the equation? You take over the city? Become another problem. Zamson refused her offer. I don't think so. Naia sat up, planting herself on his lap, careful as to not slip off of him. Then again, his length was perfectly impaled into her. hitting her spots to the point that she moaned and he grunted. Zamson's hands caught her by the hips. You do not trust me, Naia told him. Her arms tenderly embraced his neck. Expected, but fleeting. Trust your mind. Let it guide you as it has for me. Zamson didn't understand what she meant at first. But he will once her spell song hit his ears again. Her loving voice was liquid-like. Every word and syllable slipped into his ears, playing at his senses, his mind, until her tongue's sound unfolded his mind's deepest recesses, opening his thoughts like an unstoppable food gate, drowning his brain with visions he never knew existed. Naia, their lovemaking, the orgasmic fire within them exploding off of one another as they joined in the rain, the intense affection and insatiable need to be as one, forever. It was as if he knew her body inside and out for years unending years of love and betrayal. He saw it, his mind replaying their last union in a cave of candles and silk. She was taken from him. A gathering of mad vampirials clad in red robes and gray steel ambushed their lovemaking and snatched Naia into the dark. He reached for her, snarling in protest. Then came the swords, many blades finding their way into his blood-spewing flesh. Then a fiery light engulfed him. Or was it him? The visions shattered in a flash. Cut that shit out. Zamson snapped out of it and grabbed her by the arms. His hands were tight on her limbs, warning her between heavy breaths. You need not fear me, she assured him with a daring kiss, her voice but a whisper on his lips. There is so much that you do not understand, dark lover, but you will. If you want someone to help you, all you have to do is ask politely. Naia purred. Now what is the fun in that? It will get you places, he told her. Far. Naia rolled her hips into him. Zamson's eyes twitched from the sensation. Felt good. A little too good. How about now? Naia asked. She had gotten further than Zamson wished to deny. Okay, he told her. I'll bite. But conditions are in order. Oh. Her head tilted. The glow of curiosity settled in her eyes. Her hips continued to stir, knowingly arousing him. And what is that? Noctavion's death is paramount and none else. She watched him, expecting his firm expression to melt into ecstasy. He stayed strong. His hold on her moved with the dance of her hips. Her sex prickled the extension of him inside her. She couldn't tell if it did well to seduce him into subservience. The act and his resistance aroused her more. Zamson's focus called to the mind of someone else she envisioned, standing supreme within the fires of his blood memories. She even cracked a smile over it. So be it, she told him. Anything for you. Dark Lover. Chapter 14. A bad arrangement. Inhale. Exhale. Nothing in this world conquered the natural euphoria of weed. Some called it hash, hemp, the ganja, reefer. Logan and Shane called it the good old herb. Regardless of its name and slang, the herb served its purpose. And after what they had to deal with, a few good blunts prepared by Shane did the trick just fine. Logan and Shane sat on Zamson's porch, knowing well that Zamson could not have gone far. For the sheer fact that Pandemona rested inside the garage, it was concluded that Zamson went on a lovely night walk to clear his mind and miss out on some good weed. Except Zamson was in fact not out on a lovely night walk. Logan inhaled his blunt, took it to his lungs, released the calmest of clouds, and set his ears to the incoming racket of giant bat wings beating the night sky. Shane followed the sound. Zamson landed with Naia on his back. Logan was stunned and stupefied. It was unsure if Logan's shock began from the effects of the weed or from Zamson dropping in with a naked, red-headed vampirial primal on his back. Shane, on the other hand, was in awe. Naia let Zamson take the lead. Her curvy shape was a danger to any whose eyes lacked the skill to travel upon Naia's perfect bends and arches. Her skin was a beautiful golden brown. Those eyes of hers spelled trouble. So were Shane's eyes if he continued to gawk. Actually, Naia didn't seem to care. Logan cared, though. Yo. What in the dark stalk in FCK? Zamson was halfway up the stairs when Shane was awestruck. Logan expressed his ultimate confusion with a healthy dash of concern. Zamson stopped mid-stare and gestured his hands up. I know. Logan shot up from his seat, burning blunt in hand. What in the dark? Stalkin'. FCK. Shane pointed a fresh blunt at the now amused Naia. Wait. That's her. Naia flashed her fanged, sinister smile. What colorful friends you have. Z, said Logan. For real. You gots to be out of your damn mind. I'm a lot of things. Out of my mind is number one on the list. He tried to reason with him. I found her wounded in the woods. Should have left her there. Naia pretended to be hurt. Oh, you dashing hound, my feelings are wounded. Logan snapped back. Because you have no feelings. Shane sighed and lit his blunt. He knew what was coming when it came to Logan. This is going to be good. Zamson interrupted them. We don't have time for this. His break in their insult exchange wasn't fast enough for Naia. I will acknowledge your tongue to spit its venom, Naia told Logan. Not because of your connection with my lover but because I allow it. Yeah. Logan's eyes glowed a white light, similar to the moon. The wolven within was ready. Real hilarious. Calling her hilarious was an understatement. Naia was only getting started. The only thing hilarious I see stands before me, in his petty attempt of asserting his dominance. Struggling to look mighty before the presence of an elder greater than that little DCK tucked between his legs. I can smell the milk of your mother's tit wafting from your puppy mouth. A spark of insult was all it took to push Logan to the brink. Zamson was on the stairs between them. Both Logan and Naia stood their ground, one testing the other. Shane waited. Zamson would be damned if he let a bloodbath happen. Not in my yard. He knew that would end it. Luckily Naia stayed still. She crossed her arms under her thick breasts and smirked. It wasn't like I was going to let him lay a paw on me. She turned her head from them, still smirking. There are ways to make your kind sit. Logan balled one fist. He was wise not to clench the other fist or risk ruining some good weed. Logan noticed Zamson shaking his head at him. A silent note to stand down. Trusting the head gesture, Logan did just that, but not before snorting out in distress as he sat down to take a long pull of his blunt. It was best not to blow his whole high. So you two are on f***ing terms now? Logan asked just because. He didn't need an answer. The scent of them answered for him. So did Shane. He coughed at Logan's remark. Zeth. He watched as Zamson stepped onto the porch and walked to the door with a grinning Naia close behind. Whatever it is you're doing, just remember, you can no longer give me SHT for the things I've done. Zamson brought Naia into his home and took her upstairs, where he managed to find a white shirt big enough to cover her up. They returned downstairs to Logan and Shane waiting at the last step, expecting a fight or worse. A woman in his house? Nothing new. Wolven women and the typical slutty human knew the inside of Zamson's walls most. But a vampirial woman? This was history in the making. Noctavion's favor was a bad arrangement, said Zamson coming down the stairs with Naia. Never trusted him anyway. Their problem, said Logan. No longer ours. It is everyone's problem if he had succeeded with my blood. Naia eyed Logan straight. Her golden stare was empty of lies. I am the last of the bloodmothers chosen. Noctavion wishes for ascension. To claim what you humans call the dark divinity. Confusion warped Shane's face. Dark divinity? You mean godlike or something? For the sake of your intelligence, replied Naia. Yes. Greed was a pit of nothingness that demanded fulfillment. No amount of satisfaction can sate that hole. Those hungry for power were victims of this self-inflicted chaos, which ultimately was a detriment to all else in its path. When Shane realized their mission was to recover Naia for Noctavion to gain godlike powers, Shane's entire state of herb-influenced bliss was caught in a suppressed, awestruck terror. Even his heart took a plunge. Whoa, Esichi. How many men and women in power do you know who would decline the chance for more power? Zamson spoke as he made his way to the kitchen and found the bar. He needed a drink. Something sweet. Spicy. With a dash of caramel and brown sugar. To his luck, he pulled a tall bottle of black-labeled whiskey and glass just right for the pouring. The hand of Ambrogio is the highest form of vampirial control. They even have their hands in the government. Noctavion isn't that high up in rank. The perfect plot to snatch up some old blood on clearance just to get a boost. Logan and Shane kept a decent distance from Naia, who walked into the kitchen like she owned it, touching and stroking every fixture and decoration found. Logan watched her as if she was about to rob the place like a thief casing a convenience store. So dread red, here's the old blood. Naia teased him for figuring it out. Good boy. And I'm sure he's looking for her as we speak. Zamson took a big gulp. He needed that smooth burn of whiskey to hit his throat for what he was about to say next. Is why we have to keep her out of his hands. Logan looked at Zamson and Naia long and hard before taking another long drag of his blunt. While Zamson needed a drink, Logan no doubt needed to stay high for this one. Shane too. They had no words just yet. As a Kushnik, he can become a dangerous weapon of extermination for everyone. His kind is our common enemy. I am amazed at his position of power amongst the Ambrogio lords. The hell is a Kushnik? Shane asked. Zamson answered. A vampire that eats vampires for lunch. An unwanted evolution that continues to breathe the same air, Naia added. It is written that to increase their dominance, the blood elders of old devoured vampirials to advance in power. This was true, but with a price beyond that of the curse that created us. They became the first Kushnik, the unwanted children of the Blood Mother. And we destroyed many of them to advance our own existence. A wonderful history lesson. Why haven't you killed him? Naia hid what spark of disappointment crept inside her. The sting of embarrassment hit her where it hurt, her pride. She refused to grant Logan the luxury of seeing her cower. Noctavion was at her reach once. She was a fool to play along with his dream. Even the strongest can fumble. Logan thinned his eyes at her. Was she insulting him or dropping some knowledge? He let the suspicion go. Naia also had a point. Logan couldn't argue that. He noticed the silent Zamson pour another glass. Logan was unsure if it was his second, third, or fourth drink. So what's the game plan? Seeing that we don't have a choice in this. It's up to you. Zamson stared at the bar counter. If he could see his reflection, he'd notice his own predicament staring right back at him. He was having a tough time understanding the visions. I'm not one to pull anyone into my problems. Oh, you forgot that fast, huh? It was Shane who started this SHD.
Hell no.
Why me? You guys wanted to be the fast and the furious all up and down these streets, Shane said, defending himself. I'm just homeboy support. Chapter 15. All Killer. Are you familiar with the Moonbearer and her children? Logan gave Naia a smug look as he, Zamson, and Shane sat at Zamson's table, drinking up Zamson's whiskey. Naia close at Zamson's side. Who do you think you're talking to? Apologies. She wasn't sorry. The sarcasm was too strong on her tongue for Logan not to hear it. Of course they knew of their own goddess. Then you are properly educated on the fall of the Elvi, the Vampirial Rising, and the Kushniks. Noctavion's obsidian keep is what you would call a tower of vampirial power. Ambrogio was smart. He saw balance in power. No different than our own clans. Zamson nodded. To abuse one's power is to bring ruin. Only that the humans in power favor the vampirials due to senseless generations of wars, conspiracy, and slavery. Logan cracked his knuckles and reached for his glass. He was drinking now, and still smoking. To them we're third-rate mongrels on the societal scale, right behind your LV. Naia accepted Logan's words. It was kind of nice to hear about her original ancestors. She didn't bother to ask about them any further. The LV were in between the humans and Wolvins when it came to importance nowadays. Whatever level of importance they now had paled compared to everyone's fate if Noctavion gets what he wants. But what of Naia? Not once did she speak on what she wanted once Noctavion was gone other than his death. Allow the Kushnik to ascend, and this societal balance that you speak of will mean nothing, she told them. Each lord pledged to retain the order of leadership, and that is how it must remain. You spoke about the Blood Elders offering resulting in war, said Zamson. If his visions had something to share, now would be the time. They never came. Interesting. If there were more of him, things would be different around here. Logan perked his brow. That makes him rare as FCK. Now, let's not get too carried away about that. Weed smoke escaped Shane's mouth with each word until the vapors were scarce and his words pressed on. He was actually struggling. Your lover, He secretly looked at Zamson, signaling for assurance as he quietly spoke. She is your lover, right? Logan eyed Zamson and twitched a slight smirk. Naia grinned at Shane. You're a smart pup. Zamson sighed and sipped on his whiskey. Okay, you bet. Shane continued. He took Zamson's drinking for confirmation. See, Naia's something of an elder, right? She has to be like over 100,000 years old. Zamson and Logan caught Naia's gentle stare at Shane. Her cat eyes possessed a look that could softly kill. Shane realized the superb shape and nature of her eyes and nervously coughed. Okay, you look a little more in the mid-30s range. Still soft and fitting. Not too hot. Not too cold. Like a prestige lukewarm. Zamson shook his head. At least Shane still breathed. Naia was becoming used to his friends. Good. Even though it felt so odd, as if they were all very familiar with each other. Noctavion's long-term existence is common knowledge. The Lost Gangs are his doing. The Wolven Goldfangs and the Vampirial Black Rose Gang are prime examples of what happens if you believe yourself capable of overthrowing the Lord of Crime. Oh, that's his new name. Yeah, that has always been his name. Naia chuckled. So oblivious. Like a human. He has many names. His most famous is the All Killer. Shane exhaled a swift plume of smoke. Sounds tough. You have no idea. Maybe I do. Yeah, that's right. Shane remembered. He was a young wolven in his starter 20s when the gang wars broke out. Noctavion's wrath made headlines. If anything, he should be called the Lord of Massacre. He executed the Goldfangs and left their impaled bodies smoking like meat torches down in Summit Gardens Plaza. The Black Rose gang met worse. If worse could even be worse. Naia was not surprised. Noctavion's butchery skills are savage in history. Another reason he must be removed. That is what I was sort of getting at. Shane reined them back in. He wasn't done with his revelation on Naia and Noctavion. The both of you are elder-like. Who's to say there aren't others? Naia's entire face perked up. Shane was onto something. Whatever it was, Naia indulged in her own way. If you are speaking of the primals, then you are correct. We are older than even the hand of Ambrogio. Ambrogio was also primal. There were not many of us chosen to be vessels of the Bloodmother's legacy. Even the Kushniks were jealous of our power. Killing us would put them one step closer to the womb of our godmother, granting them more power. How the Kushniks failed to control the world is obvious.
Humans, vulvas, vamirials.
Logan downed the last of his whiskey. He looked at Zamson's bottle and realized they are next to draining it to the last drop. A Trinity alliance to FCK that up for them. Indeed. Naia tried to drink the dark stuff in her glass. This would be her third try. One taste and she frowned, sitting it back down. Noctavion seeks to alter this nature in favor of his own. The Elderbloods offered evolution. Those who did not evolve with them were hunted. At that time, Noctavion was known as the All-Killer. He survived this long to fulfill his dream. My awakening will do just that. Well, as much as I hate to say this, said Logan, he can try. Zamson gave Logan a confident look. This means you're jumping on board? A grin reached Logan's lips. Never said that I wasn't. But what I will say is that we do not know what to do or where to go do it. We can't just crash into the tower and fight Noctavion Hedon and she, he briefly pointed at Naia, seems unable to stand a chance alone. Naia licked her lips. It won't happen again. We can start gathering information come sunrise. Keep an ear in the streets. Zamson sat back in his chair. The streets of Twilight City had many eyes, big ears, and bigger mouths. Somebody's gonna talk. Absolutely. Now that's settled. Logan gently slapped his hand on the table like a judge's gavel. Naia's staying at Shane's. Shane coughed up weed smoke. He signaled a hand as in to wait, recovering soon after. Hold up. Pause. He coughed again. Cut the beat. She's staying where and with who? Logan sternly looked at him like he was foolish. Did I stutter? The bold look didn't discourage Shane, for his glare was bolder and a little silly. I think you did. Yeah, motherf. Yeah, you f'kin' did. Look at it this way. If Noctavion gets a wild hair up his bat black A and suspects Naia to have found me, he will send his fangs here, said Zamson. Making sense. Good sense. He knows where we are, but he won't suspect Naia with you. What the hell makes you assume that, Issei? Because wolves of your stature are considered mediocrity. Naia looked at Shane with the noblest looks, coating her face like a queen sitting pretty next to her king. Vampirials do not bother themselves with the presence of runt. Chapter 16 Visions. If Twilight City had anything to teach, it was that people tend to talk. Everyone had something to say. A secret to keep. A price to pay. Suppose Zamson and his friends were determined to hunt for some form of information about Noctavion out of the city. In that case, they were going to have to aim low, not high. Zamson, Naia, Logan, and Shane walked outside. Shane was the first to skip down the steps. Logan was a few paces behind him. As Naia welcomed the night air once again, she came to the realization that Zamson's closeness at her back started to grow on her senses, fitting himself into her personal space in a manner that echoed a natural feeling of protection, like a shield waiting to be used. Maybe he kept close in case she turned on them all. Naia ignored the notion, casting those cynical ideas into the shadows of nothingness, as Zamson's presence appealed to her tender nature. Perhaps it is best I remain in your place. Everyone stopped to look at Naia. Zamson eyed the back of her head. Her thick dreads with the gold plates were all he noticed at first before she turned to reveal her attractive face. Her eyes ascended into his as if she silently pleaded. Bad idea, said Zamson. An excellent idea, Shane insisted. You underestimate my power. Noctavion can bring whoever he wishes. They will not find me unless I wish to be found. Shane entertained the moment. The look of intrigue on his face was priceless. You're saying you can go invisible or something? Figured they turned into bats, Logan added. Zamson took a moment to digest her words into thought. It would be foolish to dismiss the nature of magic. They all were beyond human in this world. History itself testified to that. And then there was him and his resurrection through fire. A subject yet to surface for now. He saved that part for Naia. Her presence proved helpful in learning exactly what happened between them and more. Fine. You can stay here. Just don't do anything when I'm away. Naia's eyes relaxed with a sleepy bedroom-eyed shimmer. She even grinned to express the sheer pleasure she received. The feeling was sensational. Without any word she slipped back inside. Her steps were so quiet that she moved like a ghost. There was nothing ghostly in Naia when it came to Logan's study. He watched her return indoors like a snake filled with venom and deceit. Naia cemented his thoughts when he caught a glimpse of her heading upstairs like some regal queen of the damned, too. It was a no-brainer as to where she was going. Logan gave Zamson one last look. You sure about this? Zamson's mind was made up the moment curiosity struck about her. He wanted to know. He trusted her. Strange. Zamson reassured Logan with a nod. It's all good. I can handle it. If something pops off. Logan beat his chest once. You already know. Hours passed. Zamson sat alone in the kitchen beneath the dim light. The shadows cradled around what light did shine over Zamson's slim muscular body, topless and in his shorts. As the shadows and light gave him company, so did a new glass of whiskey and a new bottle included. Staring into the glass of dark fluid and half-melted ice cubes, he focused on events that transpired, seeking any sort of underlying detail that wasn't there before. Thinking of Naia, their fight in the woods, ultimately turning into wild sex, refused to be an altered memory as Zamson fought to remove their heated union. But it refused to be tossed aside into oblivion. The memory pulled him in like Naia's legs once done, slipping him back into the moment to remember the snug hold of her inside and out. Between the flicker and fade and heavy sounds of lovemaking, fire flashed into mental existence. Zamson's mind became filled with flames. Naia's lustful moans echoed inside the depths of his brain. Through the fires in his mind came the swords. Again. Zamson's eyes flashed like burning coals. He snapped out of the thoughtful trance. Quickly his eyes found the shadows beyond his kitchen. He was staring at nothing. A wandering gaze met with a long hard sigh, ending with that cold glass rim touching his lips. The moment his eyes closed, as the whiskey stung down his throat real good, Naia appeared from the shadows, watching him before the moment had ended, and his eyes had opened and she was gone. She left him alone to his thoughts for now. Hours passed again. The night retired as the light of dawn awakened the sky over Twilight City. Zamson was up and ready, slipping on his sneakers near the door and fixing his watch's steel chain on his wrist. He dressed light. A simple black sleeveless shirt and matching cargo pants. He knew today was a decent day when it came to the weather, thanks to the flat-screen TV playing the weather forecast in his living room. He decided to leave it on if Naia lurked, giving her something to do like absorbing the current generation and its news. It was uncertain if the Vampirial Primal knew how to work a remote control. No time to figure that out. Zamson reached his garage and opened the bay door. The lights flicked on when he hit the bar door triggers. And there rested Pandemona, looking flawless as if immune to the elements of rust. Still no sign of Naia. He got in his car, backed out of the garage, and before he could speed off, his smartphone rang. The ringtone's aggressive mix of rock and roll and rap music was no other than Logan calling him. He set his phone on its carport's docking bay. What's good? He answered after a swipe of the phone screen. A video of Logan's face popped up on the phone screen. Check it. I'm down at Fort 3rd. We got a lead. For a price. Yeah. Zamson scoffed a little. Whoever it was, their brave method of cooperation amused him. And who's dumb enough to try that with a crazy fool like you? This one's smart. It's Lockjaw. He wants a rematch. Chapter 17. A rematch made in vengeance. Arriving in Fort 3rd quicker than expected, Zamson pulled up into a vacant parking bay and drove to the top level, where Logan lingered near his motorcycle Fenrir. The Lobos gang gathered all around him. A few gang members lurked the perimeter in their intimidating wolven forms. Next to Logan, sitting on the cleanest silver racer that Zamson had ever graced eyes on was Zane Creed, known in the streets as Lockjaw. The brown-skinned man with a wicked set of jaw tattoos was smaller than Zamson with little muscle mass. That didn't make Lockjaw weak, as he was Lobo's strongest wolven leader to date. What stood out the most was that car. Zamson had to make sure he knew what he saw when he parked Pandemona near Logan and calmly got out of his vehicle to study Lockjaw's impressive ride. ignoring the onlookers of Lobos who watched Zamson like they wanted to jump him and Logan both. An idiot move if Lockjaw allowed it. Zamson and Logan feasted their eyes on a four-wheeled beast with a unique chassis. This was a custom Millennium Class MX-5 Silver Bullet. This automotive work of art was no over-exaggeration. The Millennium legacy stretched back more than a few good years with its compelling driving quality. A four-cylinder engine slept in its steel guts, waiting to roar. Zamson and Logan knew that the car had enough power and balance capable of zipping through the streets in a silver streak if forced to its limits. Her name's Retribution. Lockjaw smiled. He need not say much, for his car spoke for itself, save for its true purpose, which Lockjaw added at the end. Built from the ground up. Born to destroy you. Zamson pocketed his hands in his pants pockets and humbly smiled. I hear you. Yeah. Lockjaw raised his head at him. I know you do. Good. Zamson found Lockjaw's determination very competitive. His arrogance was making a slight comeback. If only Lockjaw knew how important it was for his opponent to obtain information about Noctavion. If only Zamson knew how important Lockjaw's vengeance indeed was. Just as long as you keep your end of the deal. Zamson made sure that Lockjaw kept that firmly in mind. Wrathful arrogance or not. Win or lose, you tell us what you know. Oh, you don't gotta hold me to that. Lockjaw told him as he slid off Retribution's hood to open the driver's door. I'll deliver. Rest assured. Black Wolf. Logan and Zamson backed off and returned to Pandemona. The crowd prepared for the race. He's held that grudge for that long? Logan asked. He couldn't help but chuckle. That was 5 years ago. 5 years felt like yesterday to Zamson the second he met Lockjaw again. Back then, Zamson dusted Lockjaw down in Pathfinder's Way with their last race. A long winding road leading out of Twilight City. Pathfinder's Way ended with a bridge plunging into Sunset Forest, the only forest bordering the city's south expanse. And was a terrible memory for Lockjaw, given that his car lost control, hurled down a hill and crashed into a tree. When Zamson and Logan helped Lockjaw out of his sudden death trap of a steel cage on wheels, one would assume that Lockjaw would be grateful on that night. His car exploded moments after the rescue, obliterating the car and Lockjaw's pride. Today was the day that Lockjaw redeemed himself, and what old pride he for some reason wanted to recover by dusting Zamson this time around. Retribution was the new car fit for payback. Lockjaw was going to have his revenge tonight. And tonight came. A small crowd of Lobos gangsters and groupies gathered alongside the street. The roaring engines of Pandemona and Retribution side by side filled the cool night air. The backstreets of Fort Third received no attention save for slum residences that dwelled down its blocks and what authority may have lingered. It was a ghetto of sorts, a rundown spot in the district home to the Lobos gang. And the soon-to-be defeat of whoever gets dusted last. The race started the moment the thug announcer said go. Even in the small hours of the morning, Zamson raced through the streets like a hellhound. Both cars had dashed off, slided around the first corner, and sped off like two fortified chariots aggressively built for speed. Pandemona roared her loudest. Her wheels ignited in that spectral fire that she was known so well for. A fiery wolf straight out of Zamson's memories, which almost caught him slipping as he slacked off the gas. Retribution was speeding so close behind that Lockjaw was brushing through Pandemona's thick embers. Zamson punched the gas. Lockjaw whipped left, hit the gas and matched speed with Zamson for only a split moment before speeding forward. They met a slow-moving gray van ahead, and both Pandemona and Retribution split around the heavy van. They joined at the front of the van. Zamson blazed ahead. Lockjaw growled. Retribution continued to howl its engines as the two outrunners found themselves neck and neck in speed, ducking in and out of the little traffic that came and went on these tired streets. The next turn arrived. Zamson whipped the corner from the outside in. He let himself be carried out on the turn, accelerating again at the end of the junction with Lockjaw still on his tail. High-performance engines roared. Pandemona and Retribution's turbo squealed. They crossed under several overpasses, then vanished through a tunnel. Both cars hurried from the shaft's end like cannonballs blasting into the distance. Lockjaw growled. He couldn't surpass Zamson. He felt Pandemona's familiar howl and despised how Retribution was literally eating Pandemona's cinders. But he stayed on the Black Wolf until he got what he wanted. The final curve. The final handbrake and turn. Lockjaw managed to whip his ride alongside Zamson, then slam Retribution right into him. Chapter 18. Good boy. This was it. This was precisely what Lockjaw wanted. Retribution collided with Pandemona through a turnabout. The black car with flaming wheels lost traction and was forced off the street, hitting newspaper stands and bunched up trash bags. Zamson struggled to stabilize his ride. He was sure that Lockjaw cracked his best laugh as Zamson spotted the silver car zoom on down the road as if triumph had already claimed its victor. But Zamson wasn't done. He kicked back into gear, slammed the gas, peeled out in a fiery rage and shot down the sidewalk. Postal stands and city trash cans stood no chance against Pandemona's turbo wrath. Lockjaw tasted victory on his tongue. He foolishly neglected Pandemona's obsidian heart. More than just an intimidating bucket of bolts, its blistering engine howled pure vengeance as its bitter black wheels burned the road. Among the buzz of Retribution's own turbo engine, Lockjaw glared from the coming roar of Pandemona. He quickly noted the black beauty hurrying down the sidewalk on his left. Zamson whipped her back on the road. Lockjaw growled. He slammed Retribution against Pandemona once again. Pandemona rocked. Zamson narrowed his gaze. They were coming up fast for the finish line. Lockjaw's gang cheering him on. Too busy trying to destroy Zamson, he rammed Pandemona one more time. All it took was that one wrong move to send Pandemona spinning with Zamson struggling at the wheel. At last Zamson was done for. Lockjaw howled with laughter. Retribution came to a terrible halt. Lockjaw grunted as the back wheels lifted off the road as the silver car's whole front tilted. The hood was smashed under the weight of a cloaked entity with a slithering frenzy of mad red dreadlocks lashing out of the cloak's cowl. Lockjaw saw it too late, but he noticed the face of a woman whose scorn matched the power that crushed Retribution's hood. Zamson returned to power, switching gears and burning rubber. Never mind the fact that Naia just pulled a superhero landing right on Lockjaw's new car, demolishing the phenomenal engine that once hailed itself superior inside. Pandemona blazed through the finish line. Zamson hit the handbrake, whipped the wheel, and halted in a screeching 180-degree turn beyond the finish line. He saw the stampede of Lobo's gang members flooding around Lockjaw's car, facing Naia ready to fight. An amused Logan hurried to Zamson as Zamson got out of the car. They walked instead of racing to Naia's aid. A vampirial primal versus a pack of werewolf gangsters was a one-vamp massacre waiting to happen. Lockjaw cursed Naia out as he managed to get out of his car. Retribution was done for. Her whole front chassis was demolished, busted beyond repair. Naia stood on top of the wreckage, hissing, grinning full fangs. Her threatening stance thick with arrogance fit for a warrior queen pressed to slay every last one of Lockjaw's wolves if they so dared raised a hand or a claw at her. Or a bullet. Several gang members flashed guns right at Naia. Some of them even had what the streets called a choppa, AK-47s, guaranteed to fill Naia with holes. You think they'll do it? Logan asked. He hoped so. He wanted to see a bloodbath in action this morning. Zamson quickly answered. A part of me hopes so. He wanted to see Naia rip them apart, but the information Lockjaw carried on him was vital. Zamson and Logan made their way through the frantic crowd. Naia promised their deaths would be swift if they dared. Moondust began to rise about Lockjaw. He paused his turning the second Zamson planted a hand on his shoulder, forcing Lockjaw to jerk Zamson off him. The FCK off me! Lockjaw snapped. You don't want it, Zamson warned. Lockjaw faced him. He wanted to kill them both. Oh really? And who are you to make that call? It is I who makes that call. Naia's glare was like burning daggers towards Lockjaw and only Lockjaw. Except for Zamson and Logan, everyone else was insignificant, no matter how several gang members turned wolven around her. Their threatening growls and snarls meant nothing to her ears. Lockjaw faced her. The FCK you just say? Your petty attempt in eliminating competition reflects the feeble nature plaguing your puny little soul, she told Lockjaw. Filthy mutt-born. The two stared each other down for the longest time, or at least it felt like a long time between Naia and Lockjaw. A battle of wits and restraint was in session. Lockjaw radiated with moondust versus Naia's glowing gold eyes and white teeth showing off two sets of fangs. Vampirials in this day and age sported two fangs. A vampirial with four fangs spelled the end for any not strong enough in natural rank to endure the wrath of a vampirial primal. Lockjaw raised a hand. His gang stood down. He went into a calm. The moondust lifting off of him like a faint mist evaporated once his heavy breathing took a nosedive. He found a shred of patience for now. It's one thing to race. It's another to act a fool on the streets. This isn't like you, Logan told Lockjaw. Creed. I'll tell you what I know. Lockjaw excused Logan calling him by his last name. Not because it sounded cool, but he felt Logan trying to get under his skin. Testing his composure before a primal and two non-gang-affiliated wolven could also mop the streets with them if pushed towards that brink. Naia barely smiled behind that scowl. Good boy. Chapter 19 Beef. If Zamson never took the chance, the race would have no victor. As the Black Wolf of Twilight City, every odd turned into an even, and he got even the only way he knew how. On the streets, behind the wheel, dusting cocky gangsters like Lockjaw. Lockjaw should have known better than to try one of the city's fastest outrunners around. The 4th Lobos gang went to blows with Zamson and Logan once before. It wasn't through a race though. To Lockjaw, Zamson was a menace to his operations over at Brim Hills, selling illegal substances to everyone willing to get high off chemical drugs. The Battle of Brim Hills is what the locals called it. The beef between Lockjaw and Zamson came into play when one of Brim Hills' neighborhood watchers was knocking around a few Lobos skulls, cracking down on the drugs funneling through the block. Lockjaw paid Brim Hills a personal visit. The community hero who sent Lockjaw and his thugs running were also related to Zamson. In retrospect, Zamson believed Lockjaw's discontent festered more than the grudge of losing to him on the streets when Lockjaw lost his first car. Brim Hills was all he could think about. Other than that one time at Grimlock Plaza when an enraged Logan, in his red wolven form, threw a truck at Lockjaw. Now was not the time to be revisiting old grudges. Noctavion fkin Vladimus. The flying rodent has a thing for street racing, said Lockjaw. Zamson wasn't too thrilled about the obvious. We know. The higher stake kind. Lockjaw looked over his shoulder. Naia remained standing in the wreckage she made of his car. He faced Zamson again. Naia wasn't getting off of his car just yet. They're the type of races you used to rule the streets with until you decided us street urchins were worth your time. If it were me, I'd be bending betches somewhere in a penthouse. The fame wasn't my outfit, said Zamson. Yeah. Lockjaw huffed in frustration. Disappointment spun from his own faults biting him in the rear. You always were different. I'll give you that. You want Noctavion? Find him sipping blood margaritas in Mephisto. Logan and Zamson exchanged glances. It's the season, Logan told him. They both silently agreed. Damn right it is. Lockjaw continued. There's a big race popping off there soon. Expect him in his fancy suit with his little blood-sucking beach to be there. Ya boy fed me the lowdown. If you want his head, join that race. Zamson studied him in case a few cracks formed in his expression. If those cracks spewed the familiar sense of lies, he'd know. Moments ago you were trying to take me out of the race. Now you're quick to cooperate. You could have just told me what I wanted. A simple phone call could suffice. Would have kept a whole new car or two. Logan agreed. It was a beautiful car. Was a shame that it had to be destroyed to knock some sense into Lockjaw. SHT was beautiful while it lasted. And let you two street alphas ride off into the sunrise? Lockjaw scoffed. You buggin'. You owed me a rematch. Yeah, we see how that turned out. A pity your ulterior motives behind that outshined your shot at redemption. Naia looked down her nose at Lockjaw. Be fortunate that you and your pack are spared this day. Lockjaw gave her the side eye and mentally brushed her comment off. The way she blocked out the rays of the sun coming down on her was ominous at worst. Secretly, he wished the light cooked all vampirials to a crisp. The sun slowly killed their strength, weakening them until they eventually shriveled and died. Naia was too strong to suffer in the sun. Primals can walk in the light. In fact, if given a chance, Naia would drink the sun's flames and spew them over the city. Escaping her menacing demeanor, Lockjaw once again faced Zamson, the more diplomatic of the three. Logan would have wolfed out on them by now. So, she's the reason Noctavion's got a wild hair up his A? I see why. He smirked. You make sure he's nothing but bloody cinders for me. Curiosity met Zamson's face. And what's your beef against him? Don't worry about all of that. It's beneath you, big shot. Now. Lockjaw crossed his arms and turned his back on Zamson and Logan. His car was the only thing that mattered to him now, even with the Reaper-looking vampirial in her cloak standing on top of Retribution's totaled hood. The smoke slipping from the wreckage was going to be a problem if not handled. Get the FCK out of here before I change my mind about you bastards ruining my new car. Driving off before the public of Fort Third got busy with people, Zamson took Pandemona down one of the long-stretching highways that branched off into the city's residential outskirts of West Brookhaven. Zamson's home dwelled there. Naia sat like a queen in the passenger seat. Her legs were crossed as she relaxed, enjoying how smooth Pandemona moved. Her cloak's hood still hid most of her face. Fortunately, Pandemona's tinted windows did the rest in concealing most of her face. That was a lovely adventure, she told Zamson. Is this a continuous sequence of events with you? Zamson glanced at his side view mirror and saw Logan riding Fenrir not too far behind. He was cruising. They both were. Morning rides like this were soothing at best. Every day is an event. We survive each day to see the next. Naia rested in her seat, satisfied with his answer. As Twilight City crept over the urban horizon of skyscrapers and overpasses, she had a moment. Her life before was just as exciting, especially with the one she saw living inside Zamson's memories, hailing eternal inside his blood. She snuck a warm hand over his thigh, resting it in his crotch and giving his package a good firm squeeze. Glancing at him one more time, she noted a subtle likeness in him, aside from his realization of what she was doing. Wasn't like he was about to remove her hand either. Stayed there. Naia caressed him during the whole ride. And coming to terms with this new life with him. I like it. Chapter 20 Sparkles. Against the brink of the dusk, when day and night melted together in unity, Twilight City's Mephisto district rose to life with music and nightlight. Faust Row was an offbeat road in a semi-rundown neighborhood cast off into the outskirts of Twilight City's inner metropolis. It was here that the Mephisto races reigned supreme, the perfect stretch for speedsters looking to test their courage to the limit. Limits were broken during the Mephisto races. Zamson pulled Pandemona up alongside an exquisitely vicious car so red that its body had to have been dipped in blood, and even its windows were red-tinted. A ruby on 4 ultra-performance tires, indeed red-rimmed and so shiny that one could not only see themselves in its reflection but could eat a full-course meal on. Logan had pulled up behind Zamson and eased through the crowds to safely park Fenrir near Shane, who sat next to 2 females dressed like they were ready for a raunchy rap photoshoot. Shane had his arms around both of them. His hands were tight on their thick cheeks. About time you 2 showed up, said Shane, full smiles and bright in the eyes. He must have won the lottery. Logan knew it was the 2 stunning women giggling all up in his ear. Logan looked at the 2 women. Wolven chicks from the looks of their choice of clothing. Most Wolven stuck to their native roots. It was common for them to dress urban with a dash of tribal accessories. Their feathered beaded bracelets or the hoop earrings bearing an old ancestral tribe symbol and craftwork told a tale. Their short, mid-drift leather jackets over lingerie style told Logan they were dressed for the catch, ready to get bent over the full moon. Nevertheless, the women were deep in their vibe. Although smaller than Zamson and Logan combined, Shane pulled women like he pulled risky contracts for his closest boys to complain and risk their lives. Like how they all met Naia. Case in point. You know how Z is, said Logan. He turned to spot Zamson stepping out of Pandemona beyond the crowd of vamps, humans and Wolven bustling about, ready for the race. He shows up when he's ready. Zamson checked the road ahead, calculating possible tactics. Like how was he going to win? Faust Row was a straight shot. He assumed the unexpected but anticipated a win. The advantage was paramount. A loud clapping sound drew his attention to Casiel Kane, a light-skinned vampirial pretty boy plagued with narcissism. At long last, I finally get to race the famous Black Wolf of Twilight City. From head to toe, arrogance beamed from Casiel. From the perfect temple fade with the sponge twists hairstyle to the sharp cup of his glorious red beard all the way down to stylish red clothes he wore. The back of his jacket carried a white blood drip with a red dot in the middle. Yeah, said Zamson. You do. He couldn't say too much. He was amusingly stunned by how red Casiel appeared, versus Zamson's simple brown jacket, black undershirt, and cargo jeans with the fresh sneakers. Casiel looked more like an overly glorified candy cane with all of that red and white on. At least his ears glimmered at the lobe. The sparkling diamonds on his ear shined brighter than the stars above. Zamson checked out Casiel's ride. Hell of a ride you have there. Custom. Looks like a 3X Pro Soup. And he knows his wheels. Casiel was impressed. Good eye. You'll need those eyes when you're looking at the back of red Führers as you're eating my crimson dust. Zamson rested his hands in his jacket pockets. Logan showed up next to him. Zamson loved a good trash talk. Showed that his opponents had heart. They are going to need all of that. All right. He and Logan exchanged welcome stares before facing Casiel once more. Bet. Because I'm hungry. Casiel backed off and vanished into the crowd, more than satisfied with Zamson's reply. Logan took a step forward. He too found Casiel's outfit a little too loud of a color. He scoffed at it all. Skin mosquitoes sure do love their blood tones. The race was set. The countdown began. The cute vampirial posed before the 2 cars screamed, "Go!" And the tires spun like crazy. Pandemona and Red Führer launched like destructive missiles. Pandemona's blackish flames and Red Führer's crimson sparks of light flickered in an ignited madness deserving of their violent spirits. Zamson and Casiel's heads were thrown back to their seats. Casiel claimed the lead. The roaring Casiel fanbase booed at Zamson's fallback. They believed that he was in fear. Logan stood relaxed as he smoked his blunt. Shane observed Casiel's fans with a faint smirk cracking his lips. Zamson scoffed behind his smirk. Okay, Sparkles. Loa. Naia's voice was perplexed. Her voice came out of nowhere inside Zamson's head. What are you doing? But Zamson was not startled. He figured she was watching, not following directions when he insisted she stay out of sight. He realized that he may have underestimated her abilities. That aside, he seriously watched Casiel zip away. The gap between them was dangerously calculated. Love. Naia was worried. Zamson smirked, giving him his space. He picked up speed. Casiel noticed the black wolf inching ever closer. Casiel smiled with his full white fangs. Welcome to true speed. He eyed his gauge, calculated the miles ahead, then reached to his console below, flicking the nitrous. The red furor quickened like a crimson bullet. Casiel cackled sheer madness, savoring the haste of victory. His absurd laughter weakened as the hellish howl of Pandemona wailed beyond his rosy red hood. Zamson bust through the finish line first. Casiel slowly dragged in behind. The red furor's slow-moving crawl reflected the shock that stretched out Casiel's pretty boy vamp face. Chapter 21 Order. Sitting high on one of the building's roof terraces overlooking Faust Row, Noctavion Vladimus, zipping on a blood margarita, rested in his gold and white throne chair. Having seen the race from beginning to end, he watched Casiel Kane's defeat as the Crimson Furor slinked to a stop at the finish line. Noctavion was really amazed at Zamson's risky confidence measure. The Black Wolf of Twilight City knew how to entertain him. The Lord of Crime chuckled. Beautiful. That wolf is a certified bastard behind the wheel. Lady Countessa and one of his silent keepers stood beside him. Her sleeveless black dress melted into the shadows that dominated the roof's terrace. Her time getting to know Zamson from a distance relaxed her once bad temperament about him. It was but a slight melting of her icy heart. A cold piece of work in regards to Countessa's dislike of Wolven. His speed and sense of wit were captivating indeed. Cocky, Countessa said. You see cockiness. I see genius potential. Imagine if his abilities were put to greater use. We have tested his spirit previously, and he succeeded. Countessa said nothing. Every time she opened her lips the wrong way, even when they were the right way, Noctavion struck her down with promises of malice. Something or another sat incorrectly in Countessa's mind when Noctavion spoke his words of curse only to reel her back into his good graces like nothing happened. The problem was that Noctavion manipulated her, and she knew it. She just could not come to escape him. She could ponder no more, for something familiar pressed on her senses. A shift in the winds that she was convinced Noctavion detected without hassle, as well. A black mist swept into the shadows of the terrace and formed the shape of a man in a slim-fit three-piece maroon suit, and a wide-brimmed hat so pimped out that it wouldn't have been complete if not for the fancy hat's white feather. Jasper showed himself. His flawless dark skin, pure white eyes, and gold piercings lining the bridge of his thick nose adorned him nicely. Jasper walked right up beside Countessa and stood upright with an assertive and accurate posture. His hands behind his back built an excellent power pose. A perfect diversion from the coming crisis at hand. Jasper stroked his stylishly pointed white beard. I take it the one in black won? He studied Pandemona and its owner. The tides had turned as many praised Zamson's victory, different in the beginning. It's always best to bet on black. Countessa wished to roll her eyes at the snazzily dressed vampirial. She kept her sudden loss of enjoyment a secret and kept her eyes on the event down in the streets. Noctavion smiled like a king. Black is gold. Black is the cradle of life itself. Jasper raised his head, his eyes surveying the streets below. For we too were born from darkness, just like the humans. This planet, the universe we exist in, this reality results from nothingness bursting into being, casting billions upon billions of cosmic energy formulating the grandest of schemes. Everlasting life and death. Noctavion waited for the point. Jasper's knack for grand speeches was a part of his elegant reputation. There was respect to be recognized in Jasper. He answered to a higher authority, a supreme jurisdiction governing the hand of Ambrogio. It is the order of the great cycle, said Noctavion. None are above its delicate composition. A law that must be obeyed, and like all laws they must also be policed. A Paladin vault transport was en route to the borders of South Central before it was mysteriously hijacked. A primal of the vampirial race was inside that vault. A very powerful primal who just so happens to be the closest scion of Bloodmother. Do you know how exquisite that is? A primal with a sacred kinship with the goddess of dark bloods. Noctavion kept an excellent facade. faking ignorance under the guise of appreciating a good race's post-gathering. Jasper had no clue. Noctavion intended to keep it that way. She could dominate us all. Jasper nodded. Potentially. Fate has dealt a bad hand, however. He inspected his decorated hand. Many rings more extravagant than Noctavion's rings, sparkled on each of Jasper's fingers. The primal was rejected ascension. An appalling crime. We all come from the womb, but from the womb there are rules. This one broke the rules. I'm certain the thrill was worth it. We've all committed heinous acts. Our past is nothing perfect. Oh, indeed. But the past is a stepping stone left behind. What is learned is carried with us. We can only hope our choices lead us to higher opportunities or risk a terrible descent. The search is on to recover the primal. Who knows what has befallen the ancient? Twilight City is my eyes and ears. Noctavion sipped on his blood margarita. We will learn soon enough of its whereabouts. I hope so. Jasper closed his eyes, still smiling. For all of our sakes. Jasper vanished in a wisp of black mist. Countessa could finally release the tension. Noctavion coolly sipped his blood margarita. He could sense Countessa's silent scorn burning down on him like the sun's slow torment. I can feel your mouth about to pounce, said Noctavion. Better to keep your words festering behind the pits of your scandalous eyes. He lightly sneered as if trying to smirk. My love.